Welcome, Central Texas. Welcome to KISS Community Connections at My KISS 1031. I am Phyllis Jones, your host, and I have a very interesting guest because, as you know, this is our lovely legislative season. And, you know, my complaint always is, where are the churches? And my question to that is always, I'll say I'm the child of the 70s kid, you know, when the churches were always there. When we had, you know, any civil rights struggle, the churches were there. In fact, they were the leaders. You know, they were there. And you could see them arm in arm with each other walking. And now I don't see them arm in arm. I don't see them walking. I don't hear them. So, you know, I'm always critical on where are they. And I'm really hard on them. And it's okay. I don't feel bad about it because I have that question. I mean, I know we lost our churches. No, let me rephrase that. Before the civil rights movement, our churches were strong. But when the civil rights movement came up, I don't think the churches knew where their place was. So I think they got lost, and they're still kind of lost. So we need to find them. But anyway, this week, I talked to a man. His name is Steve Miller. And I talked to him as the state education chair, because that's who I am for the NAACP, as everybody knows. But when he started talking about who he was and what he was doing, I was like, wow, to myself, because my wow was, finally somebody is saying the black churches. Because everybody knows. I don't destroy the churches, but my question is always, where are you? Because I'll say real quick, when I was allowed to go to churches, and I'm saying that truly, I had an African father, and, you know, African don't believe in the same things. So anyway, he let me go to a church one time, and I was listening to the pastor, and he was telling you that this business was doing bad, and we needed to fix it. So immediately after church, everybody went to that restaurant, and I'm from Detroit, so I can say the name of it because it's not here, but it was Green's Barbecue. Everybody went there, and everybody kept going because the pastor told you that his business was not doing good, and we need to fix that. So I was like, cool, you know, because not only did you get the word, but you got your job, you know, saved the business. And I was like, this is really cool. I like that. But now when I go, if I go to a regular church, if I go to an African church, but if I go to a regular church, I'll say, I don't hear none of that. I don't hear none of that. So, you know, that's always been my question. But anyway, I'm going to let my guest tell you who he is and what he does. So good morning, Steve Miller. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning to you. I'm doing just fine up here in Northeast Texas.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. He is in that other part of Texas.
I am.
So tell us what your organization is.
Well, the name of my organization is the United States Christian Leadership Organization. All right?
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I tried to copy and get as close as I possibly could to the name of Martin Luther King Jr.'s organization called Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Yes.
I tried to get as close as I possibly could to that without completely copying it.
Right.
Because it represents the same ideal that Martin Luther King Jr. and all of those churches that came together back in the 50s and 60s to pursue civil rights for this country, really to save America's soul.
Right.
And so my organization has the exact same spirit as that, the exact same philosophy of that, and its goal and mission is to organize the black church for legislative power. So we can begin to be involved in the community again, begin to be involved in legislation that either benefits or protects African Americans. And my organization follows in that long tradition of SCLC and Martin Luther King Jr., of churches really being involved in the community and just getting out there and helping out and being a blessing where they can. And it turns out they can be a huge blessing.
Yes.
If they will just act. We're experiencing a rollback of our rights. We're experiencing police brutality in large part because the African American church has abdicated its leadership, abdicated its authority, and just allowed and it created a vacuum, and in that vacuum we have a rollback of our civil rights.
That's true.
And so my organization's mission is to raise up the church and get them back involved again.
What made you take on this huge, and I'll say huge, monster-sized task?
Well, I'll tell you, back in 2009, I moved to a small town by the name of Bastrop, Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but
yes,
Bastrop, Texas.
Yes.
And when I got there, the city was embroiled in this huge racial controversy where the new school board has just gained power. And there had been a long time where there had been an African-American superintendent by the name of Roderick Emanuel, who had been superintendent for about 7 years. And he had hired 4 or 5 African-Americans to be on his top staff, like the transportation director, the athletic director, the director of community services, positions like this. And then over time, when this new school board gained power, they started systematically firing every African-American that he had hired. Wow. And when I got to town, they were on him. They were trying to fire him. And so there were newspaper articles going everywhere. It was the talk of the town. There were television interviews, 5:30, 6:30 news services out of Austin talking about it. And when I moved there, this is what I landed in. I mean, I landed in a town that was embroiled in this huge racial controversy. And people were mad. And so, God came to me and told me to do something about it. So this is really not anything that I decided to do. Really, God came to me and spoke to me and said, Steve, hey, I called you to do this. And so I started working on that situation, and as it turned out, there were many people in the town who had been abused by Bastrop Independent School District. Right. And then when I was talking and when I was having a private conversation that lasted 3 hours with the superintendent, 35 names surfaced that were members of the community that he couldn't help, but he knew something terrible had happened to them. Mm-hmm. So he gave me their names. And so over a 2-year period, I literally sold all of the stocks and bonds that I had in the stock market. And I quit my job. Wow. And literally I tracked those people down over a 2-year period, and I interviewed them. And after I interviewed them, I wrote up this 80-page dossier of their stories. And then along with Gary Bledsoe, and I'm pretty sure you were working on this too, was that we ended up filing a Department of Education Office of Civil Rights complaint.
Yes.
And they came in and they launched a federal investigation on Bastrop Independent School District. But here's the deal. While I was community organizing the community to fight against the school board for what they were doing to not only the superintendent and his lieutenants, but almost everybody else who had tried to interact with Bastrop Independent School District, while I was organizing the community, I went to the Ministerial Alliance of Bastrop, which was about a organization of between 40 or 50 churches, and I do the Ministerial Alliance president, and I met with them and I told them what I had, what I was doing in the community. Of course, they already knew because it was all over the newspaper. It was all on the evening news shows and so on and so forth. And I told them how Bastrop had been, treating people of color, which they already knew too because they were there.
Right.
And I asked them to come alongside me and help me. And they wouldn't.
Yes.
So that was my very first experience with the church, having an opportunity to be engaged in the community and do something positive, to do something religious for the community. I mean, and the reason why I say it's religious because Jesus is all concerned about love. And when people are being hurt, the gospel speaks to people who are being hurt. It says it's good for instruction, it's good for training, it's good for all of these things. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and God is called to people who are hurting. So we had a whole community hurting, and the church decided to do nothing. Wow. And I'll just be honest with you, I was very hurt. I was very hurt. I was very upset because I couldn't understand how men of God would allow their people to hurt like that. And so out of like 40 or 50 churches who were part of this Ministerial Alliance, I did have 2 pastors come alongside me who weren't necessarily affiliated with the Ministerial Alliance, but they were just interested pastors in the community. One was Reverend Green and one was Reverend Tommy Garner. And those men brought their congregations. And out of those two churches and the work that I was doing in the community, we got flyers, we passed them out, I gave speeches, I spoke to different people, man,
Wow.
and we rallied that community. But I tell you, I just never got over the fact that the church would not help. And so since then, I don't want to say I made it my mission, but God made it my mission to strengthen the church to be involved in this work, because when we're not, people continue to be hurt, people go hurt. And not only that, the community, instinctively, the community knows. You know, I mean, these are instincts that God put in us. Instinctively, we know that the church should be involved in a community like this. But when you look back on the history of our civil rights in the 50s and 60s and Martin Luther King Jr., we saw what the church was doing.
Yes.
We know that the church was involved in the civil rights movement.
That's right.
You know, and to experience that was personally unsettling. And so God made it my mission to organize the church, raise up the church, strengthen the church to be back involved in this work, because not only is it tradition and instinctive, but it's also evangelistic. We have so many people, especially the young generation, the new generation, who are leaving the church.
Yes, they are.
And becoming either Muslim, you know, or they're becoming spiritual but not religious. They don't want to have anything to do with the church because the church isn't involved in the community. So there's a disconnect between what you're preaching and what you're doing.
That's
and you know, and young people can see that and sniff it and smell it. And when they do, they don't want any parts of it.
That's true. Because they don't see a reason.
Yeah, it just doesn't line up. I mean, you can't talk about this man named Jesus Christ, who is all loving and all knowing and all of this and all of that, and talk about how powerful he is,
right,
and how wonderful he is, but then not use that power and wonder to help your fellow man. That doesn't make sense. That's a disconnect. So it's more than just a mental assent, than, you know, just agreeing for him to be your Lord and Savior. You have to. The Bible says we are co-laborers. That means co-labor. That means you're doing something. That means you're working. So we're supposed to be working. I mean, we're not just supposed to be talking. We're supposed to be out there doing.
Yes.
And not doing in a charity way, but doing in the justice way. The difference between justice and charity. Charity treats symptoms. When someone's hungry, you give them something to eat. That's charity.
Right.
All right? Justice treats the symptom that's causing the need for that charity. It treats the symptom. It dries up the cause that's creating the symptom. So it fixes the problem totally and completely. But we are satisfied with treating the symptoms, which leaves the underlying condition still out there. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
But you're right. You're exactly right. But you know about the when you talk about the backstrap issue, it was during that time. It was a lady. She called me up on the phone. I don't know where she got my number from, but she got it, and that was fine. Mm-hmm. But she let me know that the principal at the high school had told all the African American students, had called them to the auditorium.
It was at the middle school.
Oh, that's okay, and told them that the school was failing because of them. Because of them.
That's right.
Yes, and then she told the Hispanic kids that they need to go and repair cars, because that's what they were good at, and clean houses. And when I said the two parents called me, I told the one parent, I'm like, I got you. The second parent, I told her, I said, yes, I am. I do these issues. I say, but I don't cross over LULAC's feet. I said, because we work the same, we do the same things. I said, so I would rather give you LULAC's number rather than taking your case and stepping on their feet. You know, I say, so I would rather that, you know, and she didn't like that idea. And I told her, I said, okay, how about if I work with LULAC and we work for you? She goes, okay. I'm like, good. I said, because I don't want to, you know, step on someone else's toes. And we solved the issue. But I'm like, our principal actually said that? I couldn't even believe that. I'm like, no. But yeah, that was like, oh gosh. But yeah, that was my first time hearing about backstrap and what that happened. I'm like, and I told Gary, I'm like, people in backstrap are crazy. He said, what? They're crazy.
Yeah, the place is different. It's different. Man. It's different. So I found this particular scripture that applies to everything. It says, all scripture, all, that means from the very first word to the very last word, is God-breathed and useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. So that means the gospel applies to every single facet of our life. There's no area of life that the gospel cannot touch.
Right.
And so, we have gotten fixated on this separation between church and state thing, and people use that as an excuse not to act. But no, you don't have an excuse to act. If the gospel has the ability and the authority to act in every single facet of life, we can apply it to every single facet of life. And we should, and we're not. We're just applying it in this salvific kind of way, which is very important. But here, even when you apply it to the salvific kind of way, when preachers realize that people are falling away from the gospel because we're not active in the community in this justice kind of way,
right,
then the gospel becomes an evangelistic tool that goes out and gets or retrieves these people and brings them back into the church. So, especially in New York. In New York, the black Muslim community is huge.
Yes.
It is big. It is huge. New York,
in Detroit as well.
Baltimore area, the Newark area, prison area.
Mm-hmm.
Why? It's big in those areas because the Muslim religion is very involved in the community, and they do justice-related things. And so these men and women have gotten disillusioned with the gospel, and they've left the gospel to these other religions. Not that I'm saying I'm having a problem in those religions. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we're losing. Christianity is losing its people to other religions or no religion. So when the community begins to see us act in the way that is instinctive, which God gave us instincts, it's a God way of acting, and when it sees people being abused, and the church is just standing by looking like they don't have any power, that causes people to fall away from the church, and they become. I've talked to so many children, especially students, at HBCUs who don't want anything to do with the church because it's not involved in the community.
That happened here. Okay, everywhere has a large homeless population. We know that. And so one day I decided, because I tell everybody I'm scared of it, they're dead. I didn't kill them, but they're dead. So I fear nobody.
Uh-huh.
But I went down to talk to a group of homeless, and I asked them, I said, what do you need? I said, number one, I'm not feeding you. He said, what? I'm not feeding you. He said, what do you mean? I'm not bringing y'all no food, so what do you need? I said, I'm not going to feed you because if I give you food, he said, I've done nothing. I've done nothing but make you wait till I bring you another plate or something. I said, so I'm not feeding you all. So what do you need? So it took them a few minutes to understand what I meant when I said that. So the guy told me, he said, none of the agencies are near us. So I thought real fast. I'm like, you're right. I said, so what do you want? And he says, what do you mean? I'm here what do you want? I said, I want to do something for you, but I would be stupid to create it myself because I'm not homeless. I say, so whatever I created would be wrong. So, they said, what agencies don't here? So we need something where the agencies are here. I'm like, okay, got it. He said, what do you mean? I say, well, I'm going to go home and meditate myself and come up with something, and I got you. So I did. I went home, and, I'm thinking, okay, I got to come up with something because I told them I am going to do something, and I keep my word. So I thought of, okay, because I'm from Detroit. Well, we always did block parties, but the block party wasn't a party. It was, we had music and food, but there was information. So I'm like, okay, so I thought up, so I do a informational block party for the homeless and less fortunate. That's what I created it. But I went to every agency, and I didn't know, they wanted to figure out how to reach the homeless. So here I am. I said, okay, every table is free. Got to bring information. You're on table and chairs. I talked to a police officer who works with the homeless. I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. He said, I'm with you. Cool, let's do this. So he got some organizations to barbecue, and, we got everything set. And, so as a pastor, he called me on the phone. He goes, I heard what you're doing. I'm like, yeah. He said, so how can we help? I said, first of all, you really want me to tell you? He said, yeah, I don't need y'all. He goes, what? I don't need you. You're never there when we do need you. So I don't need y'all. He said, so can we come? I said, I didn't say you can't come. But why would I lean on you when I never see you? And he said, that's what? He said, but that's like, he said, that's like strong words. I said, well, it's true. If I never see you, then I don't need you. I said, think about it. So I had the event, and 3 churches showed up, and they showed up and came to me and said, we're here because we heard you said you didn't need us. They said, you didn't say you need us because you don't like us. You said because we're never here, so you don't. I said, well, guess what? If something's never there, then you don't need it anymore. You work around it. I said, so I'm glad you're here, but I wasn't going to lean on you for anything. I said, because I don't see you. I said, like this here? He said, I've been in Texas since the Luby shooting. He said, this is the first time I've seen 3 pastors come to anything. You 3 are the first. I've never seen 3 of y'all come anywhere. And y'all spoke to each other. He said, what? This is shocking. That's why people are looking at y'all right now, because you all are talking to each other. I say, we don't see that.
Right. So I'll tell you what, so in defense of the church, even though many times I get quite angry at the church because they're not involved, and thank God I'm a reverend, so I think I can critique us. My name is Reverend Steve Miller. I'm assistant pastor of Mount Hebron Baptist Church in Henderson, Texas. I'm a Master's of Divinity Seminary graduate. Spent a lot of time reading and studying, and just from the experience of 12 years of work in the community, raising up the church to be involved.
Right.
God has blessed me to see many of the reasons why they're not involved. Right.
Right.
And so my organization was founded to address those reasons so the church can become more involved.
Right.
And so I want you to just write these down if you can, and we'll just refer back to them. All right, let's write them down. Number 1 is in many, many pastors are bivocational. So write that down. Many pastors are bivocational.
Okay, I've got a pen and paper. All right. Okay.
Which means they have 2 jobs. Which means they work a full-time job through the week, and then they pastor on the weekend.
Okay.
They preach on the weekend, but that's not to say that pastoring stops through the week. When they get off from work, I'm sure, they teach Bible studies on Wednesdays.
Right.
They go see the sick and shut in. They field telephone calls. They have to prepare their sermon, which is very difficult. Preparing sermons is very difficult. So they have to do that. So even though they preach on Sunday, what they do on Sunday is not reflective of what they do for God throughout the week. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So time. So they're bivocational, so they don't have a lot of time. Okay. All right. That's number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2, they don't know what to do.
Oh.
They don't know what to do in terms of being involved in the civil rights kind of way. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do.
That's weird. Wow.
All right.
Okay.
So we got time and not knowing.
Not knowing. Wow.
All right. Number 3, they misinterpret what to do. Misinterpret what to do. So the first thing, when people hear that you have to be involved in a civil rights way, the first thing that people think of is, oh, that means I got to go march and rally. You see?
Okay.
So people going out on the streets and marching and rallying is a very fearful thing to do, right? And this one kind of goes into our 4th one, which is fear. All right. Hold on a second. I'm writing these down as you writing it down. So they misinterpret because they think that being involved in civil rights is marching and rallying, when that is a facet of it. But I think today marching and rallying is less important than organizing.
Yes.
And I'll explain that in a minute. Because when you march and rally, that means that you have to come to some place.
Right.
That means you have to be visible.
Correct.
Okay?
Yep.
That means you have to be visible. All right? So if you go march and rally someplace, that means you have to take time to show up. That means now you have to be visible.
Yes.
So now all of a sudden people begin to think, man, if my employer sees me out here, my job just might be on the line. You know?
Okay.
My job just might be on the line. So I don't want to come out here because I might lose my job.
Okay.
All right? So they misinterpret what being involved is. They think it's just and only protesting in public rallies, okay?
Right.
So the fourth thing is fear.
Wow.
It's fear. It's, you know, it's very difficult to come out of hiding and become public. It's very difficult to put your face on it, right?
Right.
So it's fear of what will happen to me if I do this.
Oh, wow.
Will I lose my job? Will my friends see me and start questioning me? You know, if people started asking me about it, do I know what to say? Right? Do I know what to say? And so when you start hearing all of this, we're going to couch all of that in the term fear begins to grip you. All right? And we're just talking about, you know, pastors, but pastors coming from people or being people, they have these exact same fears that the people do. Fear, right? What is my banker going to say? My church loan is down at the bank. What if he finds out I'm involved in this kind of work and he doesn't like it? Is he going to give me another loan the next time? Next time I go in, is he going to ask me about it? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, if I start this kind of work, will my members leave and not and you know, will I have a good tithe member leave? You know what I mean?
Right.
So we just count all of that in fear. All right?
Okay.
And then the next thing is inadequacy, feeling inadequate. So if you don't know how to speak to these issues in a way that's cogent, in a way that's philosophical, in a way that's intelligent, and from a place of knowing, when you start dealing with these issues and then you start going down to the school board and the city council and the county commissioners and the news organizations call you and the radio stations and the newspapers call you, do you know what to say? Do you know how to handle yourself? Do you know how to speak cogently and intelligently to that particular issue? So many people, you know, with these pastors being bivocational, and then many of our pastors from the African American community, you know, do not have seminary training, right? Where when you're in seminary, you really, really get in, you really, really, you know, study about these things, and you talk deeply about all of these issues. Okay. You know, so you not only studying from other theologians, you're studying the Bible, you're writing papers, you know, you're in these arguments and conversations with other seminarians and PhDs. So you develop a real deep knowledge and understanding of these issues. So if you're not seminary trained, not saying that you can't acquire this on your own and studying, but when you're bivocational, you just really don't have the time to do that.
Right. So
when these times come up for you to be active, you just feel inadequate. So many of these pastors feel inadequate. They just don't have the resources, you know, whether financial or intellectual, to be able to speak to an issue that they don't study or have not studied. So it takes a while to come up to speed on this stuff. And when something's happening in your community that demands a right now response or negotiation, if you haven't been already studying and up to speed on it, it's very hard and difficult to speak to.
So that would
right?
So that's 5 things that I gave. That's 5 things that I gave that holds the church back. And let me add a 6. Let me add a 6. Uh-oh.
And the 6th one ties in with number 3, which is misinterpreting involvement in civil rights mean. And to bring them out of this misinterpretation, the correct interpretation of being involved in civil rights is the word organizing. And that's what my organization does. It organizes the church.
Okay.
You know, organizing means You bring together the people in your church.
Right.
You equip them. You train them. You educate them as to what discrimination is. You educate them to what the Bible says about oppression and discrimination. You educate them about the legislative process at the local level and state level. And then after you educate them, you show them how to do it. You show them how to do it. So changes are made in two ways, but these two ways work together. Changes are made with the preachers preaching about oppression and love at the church, but then also turning that philosophical and proclamation into organization and action on the ground. So organizing is when you mobilize people to engage government at a local, state, or national level.
Right.
And and it takes a skill level to do that. Or it just takes you learning by doing. I learned by doing. So those are the things that keep churches from being involved. It's not, it was less of they don't want to be. Oh, one more thing.
Uh-oh.
I forgot. When I start talking, I start remembering. Another thing. And were you on that call last week? Did you get on that church conference last week call?
No, I didn't know anything about it.
Okay, you didn't know anything about it.
No.
The Power of the Black Church Conference. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you a link where you can watch it.
Okay.
And on that conference, we had Bishop Noel Jones as one of our speakers. You know Bishop Noel Jones?
I've heard of him.
Bishop Noel Jones. So T.D. Jakes is the most popular African-American preacher in the United States. Noel Jones is number 2.
Okay.
All right, had him on the call. Had Reverend Freddie Haynes out of Dallas, Texas on the call. You know him?
I've heard of him.
Okay, Reverend Freddie Haynes. Reverend Freddie Haynes is a civil rights type of pastor out of Dallas. He has a 12,000 member. When you go into Dallas off of 35, right? When you come into Dallas, and it's over there where a Redbird Mall used to be on 20 and Wheatland and all those streets over there by Redbird Mall. He has this huge church that you can see from the freeway.
Wow.
12,000 people. And he's been heavily involved in civil rights for many, many years. He started pastoring his church when he was 23 years old in 1982. So he's almost been pastoring the same church for 40 years. And he's very, very active in the community in two ways, in a justice type of way and in a charity type of way. So he is really good friends with President Obama. And he was one of the leaders of our call. We had Reverend Dr. Zan Holmes on our call. Used to be a Texas legislator. He's a pastor of a very prominent church in Dallas. Called St. Luke's Community Church. And then we had other churches as well, other pastors around the state as well.
Right.
And so what those pastors said basically is one of the reasons why our church has abandoned its role in the community in this justice way is because since the 1950s and 60s when Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, we've lost that theology that speaks to us being involved in that way. So we've tended to accept a real easy religion that makes, the gospel all about accepting Christ into your personal life as your Savior, even though that is the number one and the most important thing.
Right.
Once you get people saved, what do you do after that? Okay. What do? Do you just leave them and throw them? No, you help them. You help them in their everyday lives. It goes back to that scripture. All scripture is God breathed and is good for training, instructing, and rebuking, and the whole nine. But then when you go to James 1:27 in the Bible, and this, this really speaks to. I'm not saying it. The Bible is saying it. This really speaks to how the church should and needs to be involved.
Right.
Check this. It says religion that God our Father accepts as pure and undefiled is this. Check this out. Religion. Now listen, it says religion that God our Father accepts as pure and undefiled is this. And it says to look after the orphans and the widows in distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. It says to look after orphans and widows. Now I'm going to ask you a question. You ready?
Yep.
Now everybody gets this question. Everybody gets this one wrong. So you're probably going to get it wrong.
Okay.
But that's okay, because that's why I'm asking, because I know you're going to get it wrong. But I'm going to give you the right definition. But sometimes definition, if you go to the dictionary and you look up a word,
yeah.
A word has multiple definitions, right? It has multiple meanings. It can mean this in this instance, this in this instance, this in this instance.
Right.
Well, when you go to a regular dictionary, let's say a Webster's, it's going to give you the definition that you're going to give me.
Right.
Okay. So you're not totally right, but that definition is inadequate when you apply it to a religious sense. So if you go, so I have a Bible, not a Bible, but a religious dictionary, a Bible dictionary called Holman's Bible Dictionary, and it's one of the ones that I use when I study. And one day, as I was studying about justice, I came across this verse. You know, I've heard this verse a million times. And before I went to seminary, you know, I always thought it meant what you're probably going to say, right?
Okay.
But then when I opened up that Bible dictionary and I saw the biblical interpretation, the biblical definition for it, I was just totally and completely floored. I was knocked, literally, I was knocked over in my seat. So I'm just going to ask you this.
Okay.
What does the word orphan mean?
Not jointed.
Not
jointed.
What does that mean?
Orphan means that you're not a part of something. If you're an orphan, you're not a part of something. You're disjointed. Okay,
disjointed. All right, keep breaking that. Break it down just to make it a little simpler for our audience.
Okay, if you're an orphan,
okay.
An orphan is someone that sits over here to the left, and they're over there because no one taught them how to move over to get to the middle, to get to the right. So they're left over there, and no one goes to get them. No one reaches out to say, hey, come, this is how you get over here. No, we leave them over there. So
interesting. I really love that definition. That's interesting. And actually it goes into the definition that I'm gonna give you.
Right.
It's going to be a part of that definition. So I appreciate that. All right, let me ask you something else. I'm trying to get you somewhere.
Okay.
The average person, when they hear the word orphan, what do they think?
Those are the people I don't want to be bothered with.
You know what? You got an interesting train of thought. Not saying it's wrong, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Those are the people I don't want to be bothered with. I'm going to write that down, too.
I can tell you how I got that, though.
Okay, but don't give me you. Give me the average person.
No, I'm going to give... Oh, no, I was going to tell you how I got the thought that I just gave you.
All right, tell me.
It didn't come... I'm not... Okay, I'm on the Bell County Child Welfare Board. We take care of foster kids, and we take care of kids in kinship.
Okay.
So I understand I understand that child over there. I understand them now because I now am in that seat where I have to work with the children that we cast away, that we don't want to be bothered with. I work with them now, so now I got understanding.
Gotcha. I got you. Okay, now, Miss Jones, I'm going to have you take that hat off.
Okay,
I want
take
you
it
to
off.
be an average person.
Okay. Oh, shoot.
I want you to be just a regular person.
All right.
When the regular person on the street that doesn't have the experience that you have, that you see things from a different way, the regular person. If I ask my son, let's say be 10 years old right now, and I ask you, Miss Jones, what does the word orphan mean when you hear
it? I wouldn't. What is the word?
Orphan Annie.
Orphaning?
Orphan Annie.
Orphan. Oh, Orphan Annie.
Orphan.
Orphan.
Yeah, when you hear the word orphan, when the average person hears the word orphan, what do they think?
You somebody that live in a place with a bunch of other kids?
True. They do think that too, but even more basic than that.
I wouldn't know.
A person that doesn't have parents.
That's true too, yeah. Yeah, you don't have parents. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a person that doesn't have parents. But it's pretty interesting that, it's interesting. And you didn't even think that. It's pretty interesting that you, because you're not right. I mean, because you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. And what you say plays into my definition. But it's amazing that you didn't even think about that. So which tells me that you think about the word orphan from this totally social justice or biblical. I don't call it social justice. I call it biblical justice perspective, which is awesome. So let's just go into it. So the word orphan, most people would say the word orphan means a person without parents. And because they don't have parents, they live in the places that you just said. They live in a place with a bunch of other kids who also don't have parents. Right? Little orphan Annie lived in the orphan because she didn't have what?
No parents.
Parents. Right. But that's not the biblical definition for the word orphan. The biblical definition for the word orphan is a person that doesn't have a father.
Oh.
Right? A person that doesn't have a father.
That's weird.
They have a mother. They could live with their mother, and the mother could be provided for them in every way, but they don't have a father. Okay? Now, we're also going to break this down with the word, it says pure and undefiled religion is the looking after the orphans and the widows in their distress and keeping oneself polluted from being polluted by the world. So the other word is the orphans and widows. So widows, what's the definition of a widow?
Widow is the person who has no spouse.
Person that doesn't have a spouse. That's right. So in both of those instances, you have a person that doesn't have a male figure in their life, an authoritative male figure in their life. All right?
Okay.
Because back in biblical days, when people, the orphans and the widows, when they didn't have this male figure in their life, that means they were subject to all the things that you said a minute ago. People don't want to be bothered with them.
Right.
People, they're disjointed. They're not involved. They're cast aside. They're subject to abuse. All of those things that you just named a minute ago.
Right.
When a male was not involved in a child's or a woman's life in the way that they were back in the day, and even many times today, those people are very vulnerable to society. And what we have a community, African American community, where 72% of all children are born to unwed mothers. So that means our children are very vulnerable to abuse from society.
Right.
And we're seeing this in how unarmed men of color are being killed by law enforcement.
Right.
You see?
Yes.
And that goes back. So when the church is called to be involved in religion like this, the pure and undefiled way, looking after orphans, these children who don't have father figure, who are vulnerable to the world, and they're being abused by the world, many times at the hands of law enforcement. The Bible is as pure, and these guys are in distress. These children are in distress, right?
Yep.
And so in that distress, God is saying the religion that I need you to execute is to look after these people in their distress. And that means, and my organization is doing this, we are organizing churches all over the state of Texas, okay?
Okay.
We're organizing them to come into a unit to help pass the George Floyd Act down at this year's legislature.
Yes.
Which the George Floyd Act is a suite of police reform.
Yes.
And so this is one of the ways that you can be involved in looking after the distress of orphans, of people who lack or who have lacked that male input in society to help them be able to live in a way that's free of violence.
Okay.
Hello?
So how is it working right now to bring the churches to the George Floyd Act?
Well, I'll tell you. This is a very new initiative, and we're at the ground floor, which is great for all of the pastors who are listening right now and want to be involved. We're at the ground floor of this thing, all right?
Okay.
So that means it's open for you to be involved, all right? So over the last month, we planned what we called the Power of the Black Church Conference, the Choice Conference, which means churches organizing for impact and community empowerment. And we invited churches all over the state of Texas to this call. And once we got them to that call, they had to register. We got all their information. We got their phone numbers, their addresses, their cell numbers, their email addresses. And they came to the conference. When they got to the conference, we had Noel Jones, and we had Reverend Freddie Haynes, and 10 other pastors talking about the importance of black pastors, black churches being involved in this type of work.
Right.
And so we had 337 churches across the state of Texas to register.
Wow.
That's a lot of churches.
Yes.
Okay. And that's just the beginning. That was in a month. We got 337 churches. So my goal is to, over the next year, get to 1,000 churches who are involved, who are organized to be involved in legislative actions, either locally or at the state or at the national level. So now what we're doing, we're building a schedule of how we're going to negotiate and help pass the George Floyd Act. So we know now the Texas how did the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, is that the name of it?
Yes, Texas Legislative Black Caucus, yes.
The Texas Legislative Black Caucus is going to meet, is going to have a conference on April 5th and 6th. I'm pretty sure it's going to be online. It's going to be a Zoom conference, but it's going to last for 2 days.
Right.
So I'm going to invite all of these churches to this conference. And at this conference, the legislators, we're going to interact for 2 days with legislators, and they're going to tell us, and we're going to coordinate with them of how we're going to engage and negotiate helping to pass this suite of police reforms. And then I'm also coming up with some training dates of where we're going to do Zoom webinars where in different regions. So if you're in Northeast Texas, you'll have a day. If you're in Southeast Texas, you'll have a day. If you're in Central Texas, you'll have a day. If you're in North Texas, South, you'll have a day where they all come to this webinar, and we're going to do some training. We're going to train them. And we're calling for and asking each pastor to appoint within their church either a biblical justice pastor, a biblical justice director, or minister to head up that ministry within their church. So we're not asking churches to drop all the ministries that they're doing. Right. We're asking them to add this as one of the many ministries that they do in their church. But since it's so important, it's got to have its own person running it. And so this person will coordinate for the church all of its activities in biblical justice in conjunction and in coordination with USCLO National. So we'll be leading the charge and teaching them and showing them exactly what to do. We'll provide them talking points, right. The whole nine.
So have you all reached out to Sophronia Thompson?
I haven't talked to her personally.
Yes.
But I'm going through Gary.
Okay.
I'm going through Gary. So Gary Bledsoe, which is the president of the state chapter of NAACP.
Yes.
We're working closely with him.
Okay, because I reached out to
Ron
her.
Reynolds.
Yeah, I reached out to her and let her know who I was.
Okay.
And I sent her. And also, I hope when you have your conference, we need to re-educate our people to let them know that our legislators, that the word petition is dead. Petitions don't work no more. So
no, they don't.
We need to teach that, because when I talk to people, I'll tell people every day, all the time, I tell people, email your legislators and tell them what you think about HB 88, which is the George Floyd Act. I said, send them email. I said, because they said, well, I do a petition. No. I said, because a petition is one sheet of paper with 100 names on it. I said, but you want the legislator to hit their floor with a stack of papers. I said, they call them white papers. I said, but you want them to have a stack of like 500. I said, because the legislator is going to say, do you want me to read these? I say, and out of fear, not fear of what they say, but you don't want them to read 500 sheets of paper. You do not. I say, so we need to empower our legislators with white papers, which is straight up emails. I say, and everybody needs to send their own. So when this bill hits the floor, we want her to walk up there with a stack of papers that she might have to put in a wheelbarrow or something. We want her to have so many papers that they go, okay, no, just no. Because that lets them know and everyone else know how many of us care about this. That's right. And my organization is very rudimentary. All right? Okay.
We do things from this real simple perspective. So all these white papers that you're talking about,
yes,
we're going to write them.
Yes.
We're going to take the George Floyd Act and then we'll summarize it, right?
Yes.
And then we'll put that summary into and we call them forum communications. I'll tell you, we call them forum communications, and we'll mail, an email, a text, a telephone script, a letter to them, telling whereby they support this type of information or this type of legislation. Right. And then what they do is they just simply forward it on, whether it's through letter, whether it's email, whether it's through text, whether it's phone script. We'll already prepare that for them. So they don't have to talk. The only thing they have to do is just do.
Yeah.
Send the letter, send the email, send the text, call and read this phone script. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so if we send them the letter, and the only thing they have to do is sign it and scan it in and sign it and then mail it, they didn't have to create it. We created it. The only thing they had to do was sign it, put it in the envelope, and mail it down to Austin.
Yes.
And if we can do that 1,000 times or 2,000 times, we can have that done. And so I'm organizing the church in this very simple way by where we could do what you just said in this robotic and mechanical way that's very effective.
I'm glad that the churches are, especially the George Floyd Act, because out of all, and I'll say none of them are justified, but that one was the one that caused the most pain.
Yeah.
And the
right.
one part of that, what people don't, some people understand, they get it, but the one part of that that caused the hurt and the pain is when a man calls for his mother.
Yeah.
He didn't call, and calling for dad is fine. And I'm not going to say that's not as, but it's more powerful when a man calls for his mother. And when he called for his mother, that sent another chill. Because a man calls for his mother when he really, really needs her, because he knows that no matter what happens in his life, his mother got him.
Mother got him. His mama's dead. Now, here's the thing about his mother is dead, dead.
Yes.
Even if we call him for his dead mother, but you're right. The mother is always that special connection a mother has with her children because she carried it 9 months. She's a primary caregiver. There's a deep bond between children and their mothers, and he really, really, I don't want to say the word ain't leaned on, but he really, really displayed that bond that he had with his mother, and that all children have their mother. That, like you said, mothers got their kids back no matter what.
Yeah.
And he let us know that.
So
that's how we're doing it. So we're taking, what we're doing is with us, Chloe, all of those things, all of those 7, obstacles that keep us from being engaged. Usclo has solved those.
Okay.
It has taken away the obstacles. It's taken away the excuse. It's taken away those things that keep you from being involved. And how do we take them away? Well, the pastor that's bivocational, we're asking him to appoint an assistant pastor to handle this so he could do it.
Okay.
Now that they don't know what to do, we're showing them what to do. We're going to tell them what to do. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to show them what to do, and then we're going to walk with them while they're doing it, and then we're going to let them go and let them do it themselves. So they don't know. We're going to show them what to do. Now, the misinterpretation, we're not going to be out protesting nowhere.
No.
We're not going to be rallying and protesting nowhere. We're organizing pastors into a network whereby they can help and their members can help pass legislation. Yes. There's no need to be fearful anymore. You're not leaving your house. You're doing this all from your home computer, your cell phone.
That's
You're
right.
making phone calls. You're sending the letter that we sent. You're sending text messages that we sent you to send to you. You're doing this all from your home phone, your cell phone, and your computer. So there's no need to get out and show your face to anybody. Your employer, you can't find out because they don't know you're sending a letter. You see what I'm saying?
That's right.
You don't have to feel inadequate because we're doing all the hard work for you. We're taking the white papers. We're distilling them down in real fine, easy language and talking points to where anybody can engage it. But you don't have to engage it. Only thing you're doing, you're going to read from a phone script.
Right.
You're going to send a text. You're going to send an email. You're going to send a letter that was already prepared for you. All right? And then the theology. We've already got the theology, Luke 4:18. Read Luke 4:18. What does it say on Luke 4:18? It says, where is it? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed. There's a theology for it, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. That's the theology. So we're already providing the theology, and that's James 1:27. Pure and undefiled religion is taking care of orphans and widows when they're distressed and keeping yourself from being polluted from the world. There's the theology for so we provided that. So Usclo has researched what the problems are that keep churches from being involved, and then we solved those problems that keep people from being involved, so there can no longer be an excuse for the reason why churches are not involved anymore. We solved it.
So right now, anybody who's listening right now, how would they connect their pastor to you, or how would they connect you, the pastor, to you? Because they could go to a church where their pastor doesn't know what you're doing. And
That's right.
So how would they connect? What way would they have to reach you, was what I'm asking.
Okay, I'm going to give you, my name is Reverend Steve Miller. Reverend Steve Miller.
Mm-hmm. And how can they reach you?
And my phone number is 713-557-6520. Again, 713-557-6520. 6520. That's my cell number. You can call me or you can text me. All right? My email is just as simple. It's one word, Steve Miller, at usclo.com. And usclo means the United States Christian Leadership Organization, or USCLO. So it's Steve Miller at USCLO.com. Steve Miller at USCLO.com. Or you could go to our website, which is usclo.com, USCLO.com. And when you look at our website and read what we're doing, there, when it says contact us, you can put in your information there and send it, and it will send me an email.
Okay, now for the last, now we have to remember the other group of people. Are you on social media?
Yes, I am on social media.
Yeah, that's the other question.
I'm on Facebook. And you can find me. You type in Steve Miller and put USCLO, and then I'm going to pop right up.
Okay.
Steve Miller, USCLO. So the name of my organization is the United States Christian Leadership Organization, but we call it USCLO for short. USCLO for short. And just go to USCLO, Steve Miller on Facebook, and USCLO, and then I'm going to come up.
All right. Because we got to cover, I try to, when I have people on to give out information, I want to cover everybody, because everybody has their own way of reaching people.
That's right. And then we're also on Twitter.
Okay.
And I am Reverend_Steve Miller on Twitter.
All right. Cool. Because we have to make sure that all that need to be and want to be, get the information so that they can also stand up and be a part. And learn that you're not a today organization. You know what I mean? You're not a, today we're doing this, tomorrow we're all going to go home and, and eat dinner all day. You're a staying organization.
That's right.
Yeah, so people need to know that. Because too many times, and I'm sure we have organizations that come about, they do one thing, then they disappear. Which is what causes us as the people to have that mistrust to say, yeah, right, I belonged to one last time and they didn't do anything. You're like, whoops. So not only are you building your group, your organization, you're sweeping away the garbage that the last organization left. You know what I mean? So while you're building yours, you're like, okay, I got you on that. I got you. Give us, a couple of weeks and you'll see that we're different from that other organization that did the one day, one time, and they left. We want to show you that we're different. We're sustainable.
Right. Let me hold on a sec. Let me correct that on Facebook. Not Facebook, but Twitter. I don't go to Twitter that much. But okay, let me correct that. So on my Twitter handle is, and it's all one Miller. It's Rev Steve Miller 1.
Okay.
That's Twitter. Rev Steve Miller 1 on Twitter. And then on Instagram, it's Rev_Steve Miller. So Rev_Steve Miller is my Instagram.
Okay. Good, because I want to leave people with knowing how they can reach out to you.
Yeah.
Because I gave you that, when I talked to you that day, I gave you the name of one pastor that I know would be out there and ready.
I ain't got a chance to call him yet, but I am.
Yes, because I was thinking of him when you gave me these points.
Mm-hmm.
He's none of the points.
Mm.
He doesn't, because I'm like, I heard him, I'm like, he is none of, which is good to say, but he's none of these points.
That's good.
He doesn't have any of these points.
That's good.
He's 6'3" and stands out quite well, and don't care. It's for the right. It's for the right. He's the one who challenges. He did something unusual. He challenged some boys that at his church, at service one day. He knew it was time for testing, so he challenged the boys to a game of basketball. Him against them, and based on the grades, and he challenged them. And I'm thinking, how many pastors I know do that? Probably not many. But he challenged them. He said, me against y'all. He said, and whoever wins got to buy dinner. So these boys was like, I got you, man. You going down. And he was speaking the language right back with them. And we're in church, but he's talking with them. And, they're like, it's going down. He was speaking their language right back. And those boys sat up in the chair because they had something. Now we're going to get him. We're going to pass this test. We're going to get him. And it was fun to watch them interact that way because they didn't realize that could happen in church. They didn't think that could happen in the church. But here this pastor is telling you, I got y'all. I work out every day. He had, and during the day, and when they played, because those boys passed that test, and naturally they beat them because there was 7 boys and him. So naturally they beat him. but the point is, they made sure, because every Sunday they was like, we got you. we got you. And he was like, no, I'm working out extra for y'all. And like I said, he did that. He instilled a bunch of things into those young men.
Yeah. That's what you got to do. It's about what he did. He showed he loved them.
Yeah.
He didn't talk about he loved them. He showed them that he loved them, which is what people want to see.
Yeah.
People want you to demonstrate love, not just talk about it. Yeah. And that's what he did.
So I'm like, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And also for you, that Texas Legislative Black Caucus, they have a very active Facebook page.
Really?
Yes. It's very active. Yes.
So let me try to find it.
Yes. It's yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Texas Legislative Black Caucus, they have an active Facebook page. And I
Okay,
tell people follow it, read it.
Let me go there real quick. Because I've been trying to find, I think maybe I was using the wrong name. For some reason I couldn't find it. But let me see if I can find it now that I got you on the phone.
Yes.
Texas
Legislative Black Caucus.
Here we go.
Yes. They have an active page. Yes. During the session, their page is always active, updated. You find out, what you need to find out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see it. Okay. All right. I see it. Okay.
And also to too, the legislators, whoever authors the bill, because right now we don't know when it's going to hit the floor. So you can you can email Sophronia Thompson and tell her you want to find out when it hits the floor before.
Okay.
And she will add her assistants will add you to the email list, so you'll get the email when the bill is going to hit the floor. You get it like 4 days before the bill's going to hit the floor. So you have time to even when it happens with me, I'll do an emergency conference call.
Okay.
To say, hey, listen, this is Friday. It's going to hit the floor on Tuesday. Let's speed up. Let's speed up. Let's do a little more. Let's speed it up a little bit. But yeah, I do.
When bill will hit the floor.
When the bill hits
hearing.
No. When the bill hits the floor is when you want to find out. She'll tell you when it all processes. As long as you let her know.
The bill hitting the floor different from when they go and read it in the hearing room and people show up in the hearing room and they read it and talk about it. Is that different?
Yes, that's different. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. The bill in the floor is when it hits the floor inside the actual chamber.
Right, and that's when they need the white papers when it's hitting the floor.
Gotcha.
And they'll give you a 4-day notice because they get a 4-day notice. So they'll email you the 4-day notice to say, here's the bill. It's going to hit the floor. We need your response. And like I said, at that time, I sent it out to people, but I also do an emergency call to say, I know we already sent out our letters, but let's do it again. Never hurts. But they would do that for you, too. Yeah.
I got it. Okay. All right. Well, how long is your radio show every week?
Right now, we're ending it.
Gotcha.
It's 1 hour. It's an hour. And
1 hour. Okay.
You can always call me and let me know you want to come back on to let us know something, to update us on anything.
Yes, ma'am.
And sometimes if I need, I'll say to me, June is Men's Health Month, so I'm going to do a show. So I will contact you because I need the religious part of men's health.
Oh, okay.
There is one.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So I call different people to ask for that part. And I always get a guy I know. I'll find somebody I know, but a male to help me do co-host because I'm not a guy. And I'm not going to ask all those in-depth questions because I don't know them. So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, if anything, anytime you have something that you need to get out, just let me know, and you can call in and we can talk.
I sure will, and thank you so much for calling me and allowing me to be on your show this morning.
Hey, we need it.
Amen.
We need it, because if we don't come together, we're going to be destroyed.
That's right.
And that's just plain and simple.
It's as simple as that.
That's it. But I want to thank you for coming on KISS Community Connections 103.1. And I want to thank everyone for listening to us this morning. I hope you had a pencil, paper. And if you don't, if you missed it, if you say, I need to hear it again, go to KISS 103.1 on YouTube. My shows are all there. My shows will be there on that Tuesday. So Tuesday, if you missed part of it and say, I need to hear it, on Tuesday, go to YouTube, go to KISS 103.1, and my shows are all there. And also to everyone who's listening, I want you to always remember, you cannot lead a positive life with a negative mind. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Bye now.